Hi, I'm Confense Mandisa, and welcome everyone to the third edition of my Risk Talk podcast. And today I want to discuss business auto risk. And I want to discuss business auto risk because there's an inherent risk whenever anyone owns or operates an automobile, but especially when done so by businesses. And that's because businesses tend to not only have one vehicle, they tend to have more, they tend to have a fleet. So whenever you have multiple vehicles, you have more chances for a loss to occur. Okay, so there's more risk there, but also you have more drivers that are outside of your control because the business owner, they're not driving each and every vehicle in that fleet. They have employees that they have to trust with their business, trust with their liability to go out and drive on the business behalf. And you're not with them, so you don't really know how safely are they driving. Okay, but also businesses tend to have more assets at risk. So lawyers and claimants may see a business as a cash cow and go after them pretty hard because they think there's a lot of assets there, which may or may not be the case. But for businesses to manage that risk, this is what I recommend. I recommend a comprehensive driver's policy. Now, a comprehensive driver's policy would include everything from a maintenance schedule. How often are the vehicles maintained? How often are the oil changed? How often are the tires checked? Everything. So you want it to include all the maintenance. Can a spouse drive? Is it only for the employees to drive? Where is it stored? Is it only for personal use? You want to have the driver's policy to be so comprehensive that your drivers can go to it if they have any questions, but also you want to go over it with your drivers. Okay, you just want to hand it and plop it on your driver's desk. You want to go over it with them to make sure that they understand what is in that driver's policy and to have them sign it so they can show that they reviewed it. But next, have driver's qualifications that you also follow. So what are the minimum age of your drivers? So is it 22? Is the minimum age? Maybe the maximum age is 65 or 70. There's no surefire answer across any industry, but whatever your qualifications are, you have to follow them. Okay, you have to follow them. Same thing with the driver's policy. It's not enough just to have it on paper. You have to make sure that is enforced. And lastly, it's probably one the most important is training. Drivers training. Make sure you have a road test for your drivers. You do a drive along, and you have ongoing training. And back to the drive along. That's very important because I have a cousin who scares me every single time I drive with him. I think I'm going to die before I get out of that car. But if that cousin was in charge of driving for a business and they handed him the keys of a car, it would be the worst mistake that business have ever made in their life. But if they did a drive along with him, they probably would see that he is not the person that should be driving the vehicle and probably put him in a desk job somewhere because you can weed out if there's a wrong fit for that job just by simply sometimes doing a drive along or doing a road test. Okay. Also, it's very important to reward safety as well. So people like incentives. If you want people to drive safely, one of the best ways to do it is reward safe driving. So this is what some companies do. So if a driver goes a month without any infractions, without any accidents or incidents, then maybe they get an hour off of work every month. And that's just one example. So you can be creative as you want. But if you reward safety, you may get a lot more response and a lot more buy-in by your employees. Lastly, 15 passenger vans. Now, 15 passenger vans pose a very unique set of risk. And the thing about 15 passenger vans is that anyone can drive them. You don't need a special license or anything. You can just go up and rent a van or buy a van, and you don't have to show proof of anything, even though they are much more difficult to drive than a normal automobile. I know because I flipped a 15 passenger van before with 15 wrestlers, high school wrestlers in the back. I'm almost embarrassed to tell you this story, but I'm telling you this story because I want people to know the risk that's involved with 15 passenger vans. So I was coaching a high school wrestling team, and we're going on a trip, and we're driving through a snowstorm, and I'm following the head coach. I'm behind him, and I'm trying to keep up. Okay, he's going a little bit faster than he should in a snowstorm, but I don't want to lose him, and I'm trying to keep up. Well, I hit a patch of ice, I tried to straighten it out and I ended up swerving and flipped it over. I flipped the van on its side, and thank goodness we slid into the median so there weren't any cars that can come up and hit us. And no one was hurt because we all wore seat belts, thank goodness. But it shows you how much harder they are to handle. And why is that? They're harder to handle because the center of gravity sits up higher. It sits up higher, so it's easier to flip over, and it's easier to tumble on its side. So some of the best ways that you can manage the risk of a 15 passenger van is lighten the passenger load. So don't have 15 high school wrestlers packed in the van like I did. Also, utilize seat belts. That's one good thing that I did do, is all the wrestlers wore seat belts. So thank goodness no one was injured, and I think that contributed to it. But also, if you can, lower the center of gravity for the van. The center of gravity sits up high. If you can, have it altered and lower it back down. Lastly, and you should do this for every vehicle, but inspect the tires, inspect the tire pressure, and make sure is that it's recommended amount. So to wrap it up, auto liability is a big risk for businesses, but there are ways that you can manage that risk. And we went over a few today, but if you have any questions about managing auto liability risk, please do not hesitate to send me a comment. And also, please push that like button and subscribe. And as always, stay safe.